Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. So I'm here to end the Isaiah Roby discussions. I'm kidding. I'm not really going to end them because us Knicks fans, we love having conversations about the game of basketball. We're such pure basketball fans that we're arguing over Isaiah Roby on Twitter. And I just felt it was the right thing to do to make a video about Isaiah Roby because I was one of the trolls. I'm not gonna lie. I'm like, we traded Obi Toppin for 2 second-round draft picks that are in the late 2020s. We traded him to the Indiana Pacers for Isaiah Roby to be our backup four. Like, really, Leon Rose. But I decided to really dive in all into Isaiah Roby and what he has shown so far in his NBA career, spending 3 seasons with the Oklahoma City Thunder, spending some time in the G League with the Thunder, fourth season with the San Antonio Spurs. The New York Knicks went on to pick up Isaiah Roby before the playoffs, a little before the playoffs. He was not eligible to play in the postseason, but he's entering his 5th season in the NBA. And it could be a red flag that this dude's in the summer league, his 5th season in the NBA, because there definitely is some things that he needs to work on, in my opinion. But do I think he's absolutely trash? No. I'm actually excited to see what he could do, but I'm not going to be one of those Knicks fans that I'm like, oh, this could be the next Siakam or Fred VanVleet. Like, we're going to be the next Raptors, that we're getting the next star out of the G League. No, I'm not going to be like that at all. I'm going to be completely real with you guys based off of what I've seen from film, off of this previous year, the most recency biased sample size, and obviously what he did with the Oklahoma City Thunder as well. I do think he's a solid skill set, but I feel it's so important to talk about Isaiah Roby because we don't have a pure backup four on this team right now because we traded away Obi Toppin to the Indiana Pacers. But there is a world that we run a small ball lineup off the bench, a shortened rotation, and Josh Hart plays that 4 position. Josh Hart doesn't have the size at 6'4", but we know he has the strength, he has the physicality, and he just hounds guys defensively. I'm not saying I'm completely comfortable with that. I do like length, I do like athleticism, even though I do like those guys that play bigger than their actual height. I do believe Josh Hart is one of those guys. But on paper, Julius Randle's obviously our starting power forward. And just position-wise, Isaiah Roby's our only backup forward, really backup four on this team that has the most NBA experience at that backup four position. That really kind of makes sense when it comes to his actual position out there on the basketball floor and physical profile wise. So when I dove into Isaiah Roby, there has to be reasons why he got waived by the Oklahoma City Thunder and why he got waived by the San Antonio Spurs. He got waived 1 month after the draft back in 2020 back in the 2022 NBA draft, getting waived by the Oklahoma City Thunder, and it made a lot of sense. Even though he came off of a good season shooting it efficiently from 3, he was in double digit scoring. He averaged over 20 minutes per game, so a lot of people were like puzzled. Oh, why'd they waive him? Well, the Thunder weren't a very successful team. They weren't. They were playing some guys that spent some time in the G League, 2-way contract guys, and I don't want to say they were straight up tanking, but they kind of were, and they're just an extremely young team trying to give guys as much experience as possible, and they're like, let's give this guy a shot, let's see what he's got. But obviously they ended up with the 2nd overall pick in that draft, selecting a Chet Holmgren. They got Jalen Williams in that draft as well. So when you talk about Thunder weren't really good, and just the versatility of guys that can play the 4 when it comes to Thunder, and it wasn't just 3-point shooting. He does sometimes bring out unorthodox type of Euro step. He's a solid athlete that can be a lob threat. Actually runs the floor very well in transition, and he finds his teammates very well when it comes to his teammates slipping to the basket off of a screen or just recognizing his teammates cutting. And I recognize that a lot, mostly with the Spurs though as well, the way they utilized him. He didn't attempt a lot of shots in those 11 minutes he played with the Spurs, but most of them were threes. He attempted 4 or 5 shots per game, but 2 of them came from beyond the arc. Some were in garbage time. Let's keep that in mind. But he was in the right spot at the right time when it came to the Thunder, and you can say that with the Spurs as well on defense. And he was able to keep up with his position. Sometimes he was out of position when it came to defending the perimeter, but he has very solid lateral movement. Again, he's a good athlete, I should say. He's not an out-of-the-world generational athlete, but he'll be in the right spot at the right time, making sure he's securing the basket and trying his best to protect the rim. And he'll play strands of fundamental defense. He's 6'8", with 7'2", 7'3" wingspan. But physicality-wise, he definitely does get bullied at times, especially when it comes to the center position. But anyway, he's putting up these points. But you look at the Thunder roster. You have Jalen Williams, who you just drafted that roster construction wise, you have Dort, who's not very big, 6'4", like he's a big guy, thick dude, but he's 6'4". He plays that small forward position for you. And then you look at the 4 position, Jalen Williams is playing that 4. And even though he's not crazy tall, just the way the roster construction is, especially this upcoming season, he's going to be playing that 4 for the Oklahoma City Thunder. So obviously he's a starter right off the bat. That's an easy one. But you have Chad Holmgren has the versatility to probably play some 4. He can handle the ball. He can shoot the 3 ball, even though he's going to be playing center. You spent a top 20 pick on Alexis Pokusevski. He may still be a believer in the organization when it comes to Sam Presti and all that. You have Ousmane Dieng that you selected in that draft as well, who's actually, he's a lottery pick. So they're not going to give up on him. He has the capability of playing the 4. He has some size for sure. So you have this versatility of guys that are capable of playing the 4 on the Thunder roster, that it's like Isaiah Roby gave us some solid production, but we weren't really good. And upside-wise, can we compare him to a Pokusevski? I'm not saying I agree with the Pokusevski thing. I actually do like some of what Pokusevski brings, but it's like his upside isn't as good as a Jalen Williams or even like a Ousmane Dieng. At least at the time when you spend that high of a pick, you can't pick like Isaiah Roby over Ousmane Dieng. Anyway, there's a log jam. There's a complete log jam there. So it did show some ability with the Thunder, but I did understand why they went on to waive him, no doubt about it. Even if he did have some talent, they just have more draft picks coming, and they invested in those young guys, and they want to develop them very well. They don't want any regrets down the road. So they waived him 1 month after the draft. He ends up with the San Antonio Spurs. He actually has less of a role, which you could say is confusing. This is a team that ended up with the first overall pick, top 3 worst record in the league, with the Pistons and the Rockets and Spurs have the same amount of wins, and only 11 minutes per game. Only 11 minutes per game when I saw Isaiah Roby play out there on the floor. And like I mentioned, his offensive skill set, it was hard to find. There were some games he did have real live action, that he was in competitive games, but the Spurs obviously weren't really good. He had some garbage time stretches. But the Lakers game impressed me, how he shot it from 3 and how he was fearless out there on the floor. But he's going to be utilized well. I feel we need stretch bigs on this team, or a stretch 4. Obi was kind of a stretch 4. But I brought this up in a previous video that we're trying to treat Obi Toppin like a player he isn't. Like, we tried building around, like, we didn't try to build around Obi's skill set. We just tried to have the skill set and make it Obi. While maybe the Knicks kind of looked at it, I'm not saying they look at Isaiah Roby as the long-term solution at the power forward position. They're interested in Derrick Jones Jr. They're interested in Dieng. But they're like, oh, this player's already kind of the skill set. Let's bring him in. He likes to shoot the 3 ball. So when I watched him with San Antonio, standstill 3-point shooter, catch and shoot. He's a beautiful looking jumper. He's gotten better, especially since his rookie year with the Oklahoma City Thunder, shooting the 3 ball. So he's definitely not afraid to shoot the 3 ball. He's not someone you could count on to shoot a lot of mid-range jumpers. He's not going to create crazy off the dribble and get to a pull-up mid-range jumper, but he has shown if he recognizes a mismatch or he has a big outside of an island, that he can create a little. I'm not saying he has an insane crossover, but he can create a little bit. And he does like to use the Euro step sometimes, working down the lane. And when there's a crease, he's not afraid to throw it down sometimes. It comes down to the consistency of throwing it down with authority, though, because sometimes I feel like he plays with too much finesse. And he does have a soft touch, though. Don't get me wrong. He tries doing the scoop shots or a little up and unders sometimes. But sometimes I feel like he plays with too much finesse for someone that's that good of an athlete, because we have definitely seen the authority of him able to throw it down, especially this one dunk versus the Oklahoma City Thunder. But he moves very well in transition. He could bring the ball up the floor. But let's also keep in mind, he was part of the Thunder when they were like bad. Especially his last season with them, their 2nd overall pick. He's with the Spurs, 1st overall pick. So he's going to actually be with a competitive team that's looking to go to the playoffs and try to take that next step, if it's to the Eastern Conference Finals, or just remain competitive. So Thibodeau can put him in a box. I'm very interested to see how Tibbs, if he plays Isaiah Roby, what they're going to use him as offensively, because the Spurs, they used him as this three-point shooter outside on the perimeter. he wasn't like a four that he's not going to back you down. He doesn't have a post skill set, but in a limited sample size, when he has flashed, he has shown the ability to throw up a little baby hook, but he's not someone that's going to back you down the post. He doesn't have that crazy physicality and strength, but they used him as a 3-point shooter, and they would use him sometimes when screens being set to find the roll man and find his teammates. So they did utilize his underrated playmaking that he definitely does have good accuracy, has good touch on when his teammates are, and he recognizes perfect timing when his teammates are rolling to the basket. So he's an underrated playmaker for sure, but it comes down to the physicality. Like I said, he's not a good post scorer, struggles to finish through contact sometimes when he's not just straight up attacking the basket, and he just has the lack of a post game. And when he sometimes gets to the center, he beats his man, he could struggle finishing over the center or the more physical guy. He's shown he can do it, but it's just not very consistent with his game. And I feel another reason, maybe the Spurs didn't keep him around as well, because the Spurs waived him because they wanted to make some room for Sandro, who's actually a forward from Seton Hall, and also he was battling some ankle injuries. He wasn't able to stay healthy at the end with the Spurs as well, and the Spurs were probably thinking, is this really a long-term piece? He's all right, but we're probably going to get even a backup four that may be better than him. So Sandro Mamu, I'm gonna call him Mamu because that's what I called him when he came out of Seton Hall, because I cannot pronounce his last name very well, and I don't watch a lot of games that I just concentrate on pronouncing his last name. But I feel another big part is not finishing well through physicality, even though I'm always a guy that's like, when you're a coach, play your guys throughout their strengths, which I feel Pop did with his skill set. But then also maybe that's just not someone he was looking for when it comes to that type of skill set. But he wasn't a big-time rebounder. He's not a very good rebounder. He's not going to stick his head in there and get a big-time rebound, because even when he was playing 21 minutes per game with the Oklahoma City Thunder, he averaged 10 points, but he only averaged 4.8 rebounds. He's not a fantastic rebounder that's very aggressive on the boards. So when I look at him, Isaiah Roby did not play a big role with the San Antonio Spurs, who was one of the worst teams in the league. Maybe Popovich wasn't a fan of what he brought to the table, of what type of brand he was playing, even though they were one of the worst teams in the league. I'm not sure how Tibbs is going to look at his skill set. I do think he's a little better defender than Obi, but I feel Obi brought more to the table offensively, to be completely honest with you guys. But Isaiah Roby, good wingspan, good size, not crazy strong, could sometimes be out of position outside on the perimeter, but when he's in the inside, he's definitely going to try his best, and I feel he's a pretty good interior defender when it comes to mid-range and interior-oriented, or when it comes to that area defensively. But on the perimeter, he's like defending the perimeter, but having that wingspan, having that athleticism, he doesn't give up on plays. He plays extremely hard, which I really do respect about Isaiah Roby. And do I think he's going to be a backup for the Knicks this upcoming season? I literally do not know. I can't give you guys an answer. I really do think Tibbs is going to roll with Josh Hart as a backup four, and I think we might pick up a veteran, more of kind of a proven guy, because I look at Roby, still kind of a project a little bit. Even though it's his 5th up-and-coming season in the league, he's still in the summer league, so he sometimes still does have bad habits that he bailed offensive players out when it came to the shot clock winding down. But who knows, maybe he ends up being a good player for us as a backup four. But let me know down below your thoughts on Isaiah Roby, and peace out, y'all.